to the Insight to Action podcast. My name is Donna Jones. I believe that we've got real opportunities to become much more aware, raise our consciousness level, see a bigger picture, and make our decisions matter where it counts most. And one of those ways is by recognizing that diversity is a critical component for our success overall, both in workplace and in personal lives. And to that end, we're having a conversation today about neurodiversity in the workplace. My first encounter with autism was in Los Angeles with a colleague of mine whose name is Johnny Seitz. Now, Johnny was not your ordinary, he was a dysfunctional autistic individual as a kid, but eventually he grew into an extremely functional individual. And what he could do that no one else could do was see into your muscular structure, the skeletal structure. And so eventually he became the guy that when Dick Clark had a stroke, Dick Clark, the television broadcaster, had a stroke and couldn't come back from it, they called up Johnny, because Johnny was the guy who would look at the body system, he would watch how someone moved, and he would know exactly which muscle group to activate in order to restore full balance in the physical system. So basically called him up and said, we don't know, we can't help him in the conventional system anymore. Johnny, you're the guy, can you see what you can do? And Johnny put Dick Clark back on screen. So that was my first introduction to what we call autism, which in fact, from my point of view, is more of a pathological lens than one that reflects the unique and specialized intelligence. So we often hear about autism as a brain disorder, but when you look at it as a specialized form of intelligence, a massive pool of untapped talent for companies seeking talent. Today, I've got a wonderful opportunity to chat with Carol Simpson, who has started the Focus Professional Services, which provides software testing and data quality services to organizations and companies in the Vancouver, Canada area. Now, the solution that Carol's company offers is one that really recognizes the unique advantage of these neuro-specialized intelligence. And I'm going to use that frame because I'm not that fond of a pathological view. I'm more keen to recognize that we have a variety of intelligences out there, and really what we're learning is how do you work with them successfully. So rather than conforming, how do we use the diversified intelligences that we've got available to us? Because those on the autistic spectrum come with a really remarkable ability in both pattern recognition, attention to detail, sequencing and logic, and have the capacity to see things others don't, but they're missing the social and communication skills. So Carol, if you would, share a story of one of your team members.
One of my team members is a young man who has never held a job before and was seen as a fairly difficult person, and people tended to want to avoid him. So he proved to have the abilities, the aptitude to work in the IT field, because we put our employees through a really rigorous screening process. And he scored very highly in his abilities, in his aptitudes and talent. So we put him through the training, and he learned a lot in that process around what it means to work in an office environment, behaviors that were acceptable and behaviors that were not acceptable. And over the 200 hours of training, he was able to adapt because he was keen to learn. So he was really very coachable. Today he's working at one of our client sites, and he is a top performer. Everyone thinks that he's just absolutely fantastic. He's actually a really personable, well-adjusted young man.
So this is a wonderful story of transformation from someone who may not have been able to fit in and felt isolated or ostracized on the fringe, and through your training program, cover the arc so they can actually contribute.
Yes.
What do your clients get from that?
Okay, well, I'll give you an example of a situation that we had at one of our client sites. The client was in the position of having a really tight deadline for delivery, which is really common in the IT world, and was concerned about making their quality metrics at the same time. So they brought in 3 of our employees who joined their team, and the Focus employees actually outperformed not only all the expectations, but were as fast as or faster while maintaining quality of work as any of the other non-focus team members. The client came in early on their deadline and met all their quality metrics. And one person from that client said that it was a humbling experience. And another said that they wiped out the word disability.
I love that.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's just what we'd always hope for. It's what do you focus on, the disability or the ability? And it's so nice when the shift takes place. So.
Yes, absolutely.
That's got to be super rewarding for you. What inspired you to get Focus started? Because it's not you've taken on a fairly challenging endeavor here. What got you started on this and why?
When it comes to challenges in my personal life, I am the single mother of 2 adult sons who are on the spectrum. So I'm up for challenges, as any parent of an autistic person would be able to tell you. What inspired me were other companies in Europe in particular, and then later in Canada, who had autistic employees who were providing IT services to businesses. So my background is IT. I've been in the software and management field for more years than I care to disclose, really. And I thought that, okay, if this business model can work in Belgium and Denmark and Germany, and then later in Calgary, it can work in Vancouver. So I thought, all right, I'm the person to do it because I've got the IT background, I've got the exposure to autism, and I've got the drive to do it. And I would have to say that it has been the most rewarding career challenge I have ever encountered. I have found that my heart is in it, and I've got everything invested in proving that hiring individuals on the spectrum is good business. We are a for-profit organization, and so I need to look at the bottom line, I need to look at quality of service, and I need to look at sustainability of the business. And I'm out to prove that hiring people on the spectrum, you can achieve all of those typical business goals while also achieving a social agenda.
Yeah, which I personally think is brilliant because this is what we need. We've got a whole bunch of people sidelined due to unconscious bias and a whole bunch of fear around diversity and differences. And yet, then that's why I appreciate what you're doing is just to wade in and face that head on.
Yes.
How do you engage your clients? Because not all clients will have the kind of brain that says, and certainly in Vancouver, I know, and it's probably elsewhere in the world, people will hire on the basis of appearance. They'll say, I'm looking for somebody who doesn't have tattoos, doesn't have earrings in their, who fits my image of who someone should be. And so, even gender or transgender, whatever, there's a number of screens that people use unconsciously to eliminate talent from their pool without knowing it. Do you run into that kind of unconscious bias, the fear of diversity difference when you're working with or marketing to your clients?
Yes, I do. And the 2 biggest fears is having to do with the unknown. Like what is autism? What will be expected of me? What will be the accommodations? Will I be able to handle them? Will I have the time? And then the risk associated with commitment. Do I really want to go out on a limb and take a chance? So to mitigate these barriers, we focus on the strengths of individuals. So we say you've got to look at the aptitude, the abilities, and the talent that these people are bringing into your organization. Because the quality of the workmanship, that really should be the defining factor in choosing your team members.
No kidding, like merit.
Absolutely. And rather than seeing if they're a good social fit or they'll fit the perceived culture of the company. Because what we also find is that once autistic individuals are introduced into a workplace, there are a number of very interesting transformations that occur. And one of them is that the other employees, as they learn and grow at a personal level around working with neurodiverse individuals, they actually start appreciating their employer more. They start feeling really good about themselves and their growth. So it ends up being a feel good as well as getting really good results. And we find that the workplace anything that a person on the autism spectrum needs, for example, clear instructions, and those clear instructions don't have to be written down. They can just be clarification upon clarification upon clarification through a conversation. Those clarifications help all of the employees, because what will happen is that somebody who isn't on the spectrum can sometimes be shy about speaking up and saying, I don't understand, because they don't want to look foolish. Whereas the person on the spectrum will put their hand up and say, I don't understand. They don't have that social filter around how they're going to be perceived, and so they will drill down until they do understand, and that benefits everybody.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, what you're talking about here is just nailing the majority of communications issues that most companies and teams have. It's not being out front about, I don't get what you're trying to communicate, or I think I do, but then you deliver the wrong thing and people blow up, so they know what they don't want, but they can't articulate clearly what they do want. So this is a brilliant side effect of bringing. Oh, I love it. Tell us more. Let's. What other side effects have surfaced as a result of bringing in neurodiverse individuals into the workplace?
One of the things that we do right at the very start of a contract, before we actually place our employees at a client site, is that we'll go on into the workplace and present hour-long presentations on, quote, autism in the workplace. In 1 hour, it's surprising how much you can really cover off. With some of my clients, I've given that presentation multiple times. So at one client site, I would say that about 700 of their employees heard this presentation. And at another client site, I'd say about 300. What happens is that afterwards, I'll have various client employees come up to me and start talking about a team member or themselves or a family member where they have observed some of these behaviors. And I reassure them by telling them that, yes, all of these behaviors are on a spectrum of human behaviors. And at some point, you go past a tipping point and you can actually have a diagnosis. But really, we're just talking about human behaviors and a spectrum of them. And then at some point, those behaviors form a diagnosis called autism. But it isn't as if the behaviors are foreign to the human condition.
What you're speaking to here is the reality that we are all humans, and we just come packaged in different ways.
That's absolutely.
And that's what's really exciting about the process of widening the lens and embracing other forms of intelligence, because that is the place where we become more attuned and more compassionate toward the human condition, and therefore we can accomplish more, much more.
Absolutely. And what happens through that training is that it starts breaking down some of the barriers of the fears, because the known or the unknown becomes the known. So they listen to it and it's like, oh wow, I think I can do this. So it reassures them, and it's a matter of giving them confidence and license to say, yes, you can. This is not something where you're going to have to behave totally differently with the people on the spectrum than with the rest of your client, the rest of your employees, your team members. You may have to tone down on sarcasm, and innuendos, and speak plainly, like say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's another phrase that we use as well.
Well, and what I love about that is that what you're doing is cleaning up the laziness in the communication inside a company at the same time. So instead of dealing with an emotional issue, somebody will be sarcastic or spin it off and sort of drop it on people. Whereas with this kind of conversation in the workplace, you actually have to clean up that kind of garbage and ensure that you actually have quality conversations. And boy, that changes performance.
Well, it sure does, and it sure changes the atmosphere in the workplace, because if you are working in an environment where there is a lot of innuendo and there is a lot of sarcasm, that actually produces a fairly toxic environment, and it can get in the way of people feeling comfortable being themselves and just focusing on the work at hand. So by being direct and still respectful, your workplace actually becomes a kinder work environment.
And I think it's nice when people can actually wake up in the morning and say, I really want to go to work.
Well, no kidding. No kidding.
What a concept. I know that the big companies like SAP was one of the first to start hiring off the autistic spectrum. Microsoft had been doing it. Now I noticed recently HP, Hewlett Packard is now starting to do it. Finding a pipeline for those on the spectrum isn't easy because they've discovered that you can find a pipeline for everybody else easily. You just announce you're looking for jobs, but getting those specialized intelligence individuals is more difficult. How do people find you? How do you find your talent that work on your teams?
No, that's a very good question. And I have a very wide network when it comes to autism, mainly because my two sons are on the spectrum. And so I've got informal contacts where when it's time for me to recruit another group of employees, I'll let all of my informal contacts know. And some of them are in the university, some of them are professional service providers like psychologists, others are in colleges, and others are running informal networks of people on the autism spectrum. So it's very much a grassroots kind of approach. Then I also pull in employment services, so that's more of a formalized approach. I'm thinking of expanding that out and also recruiting through the normal channels as well. But typically when I go out and recruit, I get a lot more candidates, applicants in than what I can hire.
Well, for the moment anyway.
For the moment.
I expect that will change as people catch on to the fact that they're overlooking a large pool of talent. Now, for those who are on the spectrum, and when we're talking about here the autistic spectrum, which includes Asperger's and so forth, for those who are on the spectrum, after you've been put down and isolated and marginalized for a period of time because you are different, you got to overcome a certain amount of a lack of acceptance, if you will, or rejection, depending on how you frame it, and doubled up if they haven't had the kind of support that you've been able to give to your two boys. What adjustments first of all, how do the newcomers coming in who are like the story you told at the very beginning, what's their journey in going from being marginalized into being a contributing member of your team?
What I say to those individuals is that the world is changing, and unfortunately it's not changing fast enough, but it is changing. Neurodiversity is becoming more known, and through it being more known and understood, there's greater acceptance occurring. And what I suggest to people on the spectrum is always take a positive learning experience from even the worst situations and know that bad behavior from others, such as discrimination and insensitivity towards you, is not about you, but about the other person. And don't let it stop you from getting back in there and trying again. One of my employees, he's in his mid-30s, and he has his Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics. And in those few years in which he's been out in the job market, he has had 14 different jobs. So he was able to actually get the job, but he was not able to retain it. That focus, we have placed him at a client site where he is doing work that, number one, he loves, number two, he is excellent at it, and number three, they think he's a star. And he is a star. So it's a matter of finding the right place for yourself and always seek out what it is that you love. So if you're somebody who loves drawing, loves artwork, then go into that field. If you're somebody who really likes IT, then go into that field. So follow your heart.
And this is so profoundly human. It's
yeah.
I mean, we don't have to be talking about neuro specialized individuals.
No.
This is common across the human condition.
Yes, it is. Yeah, what I have found in my life as an older individual, but not too old, okay, is that everybody has things happen in their lives. Nobody seems to get off scot-free. People just don't get off scot-free. But it's what you do with those experiences. It's how you grow internally and gain greater awareness and strength within yourself to then move forward. I mean, and that is what really counts.
Yeah, absolutely. All the way. That's where the resilience steps up. I mean, it's really about developing resilience. So things go sideways. Do you turn yourself into the victim of circumstance and shrink? Or do you say, well, that was interesting, learn, move on? And yeah, you've nailed it. You've nailed that process exactly.
A personal story of mine, and it has to do more with education, is that my older son was told in high school that he should not aspire toward getting his high school diploma, that not all students are capable of getting their high school diploma, and he was one of them. Well, my older son today is getting his master's degree in mathematics at the University of BC.
Fantastic.
He's an absolutely brilliant young man. If he had have listened to his guidance counselors and teachers in high school, he would not have attained what is his dream. So don't let others discourage you. Go after what your dream is.
You know, I love this. If you go on the TED Talks and you Google Jacob Barnett, you'll see the story of a kid who at 2 was told he wouldn't. His mother was told he'd never be able to tie his own shoelaces. He won't amount to much. Well, and then he does a TED Talk, and he's 14. He's in the institute that is Stephen Hawking is on the board. He's come up with his own mathematical formulas, original math, and he solved one of the unsolvable mathematical formulas. So here's a kid that goes, well, you know what? They were right. I still can't tie my shoes. I prefer Velcro or flip-flop. He was wearing flip-flop. But he's doing doctoral level math at 14, 15, 16. So, yes.
Yeah.
There's truth to won't be able to get a high school diploma, but can get a master's.
Right. Okay, so I really relate to your story because my older son cannot tie shoelaces. So we buy him slip-on shoes. Like, this is not the end of the world.
No.
But he's very close to having a couple of math papers published. So
yeah. And I mean, this is where we really get down to what can you accomplish when you focus on what you love, and when you clear the little minor things like shoelaces out of the way, and just continue to focus on what's possible and that pure potentiality that's sitting inside someone. So that's brilliant. What have your kids taught you?
Oh, my goodness.
I guess we should do another program on that, right?
Oh, I think so. No, I am so eternally grateful to my 2 sons, and I really admire them. They get up every day and they take on the world, and they are really kind-hearted young men. I am just so unbelievably proud of them.
So you must feel that way too with some of your employees, because they have jumped these hurdles and are now, walking into workplaces and doing some really outstanding work in a field that, to be honest, I mean, the IT world and coding and all that stuff, there's a lot of things that can go sideways.
Oh, yeah. And there could be lots of changes that happen in the workplace too. Priorities change. You're in the middle of a project or a task in that project, and somebody comes running and says, no, we got to stop that. We got to go do this over here instead. And people on the spectrum are typically individuals who don't like a lot of disruption and change. While the staff at Focus, they learn that, no, this is the nature of the beast in IT. So guess what? We're going to learn how to adapt and change. So one of my employees, he took that skill and applied it in his personal life, where for the very first time ever, he flew on a plane. And he did it by himself. He was flying down to the States to visit his girlfriend. And on the return trip, one of his connecting flights was canceled. He was able to handle that situation all on his own. Well, that requires a fair bit of thinking in the moment and not panicking and looking at alternatives and moving forward. And he was able to do that. So these are skills that can be learned.
Right, and practiced and put into play.
Absolutely. There have been a number of studies on what produces happiness in employment. And there are two that I've really landed on, and one of them is that people are really happy when they are able to work to their strengths. So that would be something else that I would also recommend to people on the autism spectrum is look at what you're really good at, what your strength is, and really focus on that and get really good at that. Then the other is that they have a sense of belonging in the workplace. So this is something that through the training that Focus does at our client sites and our ongoing support, we want our employees to feel welcome, not marginalized, but feel welcome inside the client work site and for there to be ongoing interactions happening. At one of our client sites, we told our employees that there would be a lot of interaction with the client because it was an agile environment methodology that was being employed through the development project, and there was very little documentation. So everything would be through oral communications. My staff initially were like, oh no, like, will you be there with us? And I said, well, initially, but after a while, no. So fast forward a few months, and those same employees are saying that what they enjoy most in the job, as well as enjoying the tasks that they perform, is that they really enjoy the interactions with the client. So they overcame one of their fears, and that was interacting with other people. So I dropped in at that particular client site, and there's people coming and going with my staff all the time, chatting with them, just like a regular, normalized work situation.
Yeah, so I appreciate both the resiliency and the capacity to learn, adapt, and apply that the folks you're working with, your team members are demonstrating. Do you have any tips that you would give employers who say, no, I can't find talent and whatever?
Yeah, I know. Like it's well known in STEM jobs, and IT is a STEM job. It's difficult to find that ideal candidate. That university grad with 5 years of experience. That person is just getting harder and harder to find. So I suggest looking into untapped talent pools. Be open and curious about non-traditional options. Think in terms of strengths and aptitudes in applicants rather than their abilities to market themselves in an interview and your perception of a cultural fit in your organization. Just let those go by the wayside and really look at the applicant and think about their aptitudes and can they do the job. If you're in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver, and you're looking for IT talent, you've got the option of starting, taking small baby steps by contracting with Focus and testing the waters.
You don't have to be a Microsoft or an SAP to find out how this works.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
Good point. Where can people get more information?
Well, we have a website. It's Focus PS or Professional Services.ca. And on our homepage, we have a video. We just released it a month ago, and we've had wonderful feedback on it. It's under 3 minutes long, and I really do suggest that you watch it. We've got some of our staff and one of our clients on that video, and it really does tell the story.
It does. I've watched it. So, Carol, I want to thank you for being on the program today. Did we miss anything? Is there anything that you'd like the listeners to know that we did not cover? We
covered quite a bit, Donna, and I'm sure that I'll get off the call and I'll think, oh no, there is this and this and this, but maybe there will be other opportunities.
Yeah, we can always pick that up later. I think we're on a topic here that's really relevant in a world where there's a lot of untapped talent, and it's largely been because it's been overlooked. It doesn't conform to the norm, and we're well beyond that part in place in human evolution and consciousness and business. So I appreciate what you're doing. It's extremely exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to having another conversation with you. Not only that, but also in person, because we can do that. So.
Yes, absolutely, because we're both in the same city. That would be wonderful, Donna.
For a change. I mean, I have gone to London to meet with people like Peter Cook and other people that have been on my and Stelio in Italy, Stelio Rosera for Cocoon Project. So you do get there eventually, but it's always nice to do face-to-face. So thanks again.
Well, thank you, Donna.
I'm Donna Jones. I bring clarity and insights to workplaces and situations where the complexity is taken over and it's really hard to see the forest for the trees. I also bring the understanding of how to work with complex systems from a change management point of view, because it's a completely different system than what most organizations use, and therefore it's much faster and much more fun and much more engaging, and it lasts. Decision makers gain greater clarity on how to work with shifting perspectives in complexity so that you can see things more clearly and find those serious leverage points that where a little effort goes a long way. Or reach out to me at www.FromInsightToAction.com. Find me on Twitter, Donna, D-A-W-N-A, EP, Donna, D-A-W-N-A _ and or email me at Donna, D-A-W-N-A, FromInsightToAction.com. Thanks very much for joining me. Music this week, the same artist that you heard last week, who is Peter Cook, business innovator, Rock and Roll Academy of Rock and Roll, wonderful mashup of music and innovation and thinking differently. So yeah, here's a piece from Peter's band music site. Enjoy.